Hello and greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is my Redux/redo version of my walkthrough and review of the D&D module, the Sunless Citadel. When compared to my previous version, I tried to improve the audio as much as possible, and I will be deleting the old version of the video. Meanwhile, just outside of the village of Oakhurst, on the broken cobblestones known as the Old Road.
Emily, what did Caro Winhuckria want us to do again?
Ralf, she commissioned us to find and rescue her lost son and daughter.
Emily, I had a nasty hangover when we were talking with Caro Win. I am still suffering from it, now. Henri, I can use some of your healing magic to cure this throbbing headache.
Ralf, my healing powers is not magic. Oh, never mind. Anyway, I will not waste my spells on such a minor inconvenience. We may need it once we start exploring the ruins at the bottom of the ravine.
Ugh. Again, what were the names of the son and daughter?
The son's name is Taljan. He is a warrior by training. The daughter's name is Sharwin. She is a mage.
Thanks, Ophelia. How long have they been missing?
They have been missing for 1 month. And Ralf, please stop chasing after women that can drink you under the table.
Ralf, do not respond to Ophelia's comment. Anyway, let me fill you in on some of the details you missed. A month ago, Taljan and Sharwin were part of an adventuring party that went to the said ruins. Their leader, Sir Bradford, a paladin of Paylor, believed that somewhere underneath the ruins, the origins of the supernatural fruit can be found.
Hello, lovely person. This is RPGmodsFan, and in this video, I will be reviewing and discussing the Dungeons & Dragons module/adventure, the Sunless Citadel, which was written by Bruce R. Cordell and published by Wizards of the Coast in 2000. This is the first D&D module/adventure that Wizards of the Coast published after their acquisition of TSR. After acquiring TSR, Wizards of the Coast published their own version of Dungeons & Dragons, more commonly known as 3rd edition D&D. This adventure is the first published adventure for the 3rd edition of the D&D game. Because this is Wizards of the Coast's first published D&D adventure, I like to give it an unofficial mod code of WOTC 1. This module was meant for beginners of the D&D game, and was written for player characters starting at 1st level. By the time they reach the finale, the player characters should be at 3rd level. If not, then the Dungeon Master should award enough experience points for them to level up to 3rd level. The Sunless Citadel was updated for D&D 5th edition rules in the Tales of the Yawning Portal adventure book. The Sunless Citadel adventure is not set in any specific campaign setting, and is meant to be run in any number of settings. However, Tales of the Yawning Portal does provide some suggested locations for the adventure. For Faerun, aka the Forgotten Realms campaign setting, Tales of the Yawning Portal suggests a location within the Neverwinter region. More specifically, the Tales of the Yawning Portal suggests that the Sunless Citadel takes place in the foothills northwest of the town of Thunder Tree and south of Mount Hotenau. For the Greyhawk campaign setting, Tales of the Yawning Portal suggests a location that is the northwestern part of Bissau. More specifically, it suggests that the Sunless Citadel takes place in the foothills west of the town of Thornward. For the Dragonlance campaign setting, on the world of Crine, Tales of the Yawning Portal suggests a location within Zarsaroth. For the Eberron campaign setting, Tales of the Yawning Portal suggests the western edge of the Mournland as the location of the adventure. It also states that the Mournland is within sight of the adventure. The player characters start in the small town of Oakhurst. The Sunless Citadel module presents 3 possible adventure hooks for the player characters. The first possible reason is that the player characters are simply going on the adventure
for gold and glory.
Another possible reason is they were contracted to rescue a pair of siblings. A month ago, a party of adventurers went into the Sunless Citadel and never returned. The mother of 2 of them will hire the player characters to find and rescue them. The mother is a merchant named Carowyn Huckreel. Her missing children are her son named Talgen, who is a fighter, and her daughter named Sharwyn, who is a mage. The third possible reason involves solving a mystery for the inhabitants of Oakhurst. However, to me, this is a weak adventure hook and is rife with potential plot holes. Hence, as a DM, I would not use it. Pause the video here if you wish to read it, because I do not think it is worth covering. Personally, I think the Sunless Citadel is an excellent Dungeons & Dragons adventure. Given that it is a beginner-level dungeon and adventure, that is quite an achievement. In the spoiler section of my review, I will give a few suggestions on improving the adventure. Admittedly, these improvements are really minor enhancements and should not be construed as criticism. The Sunless Citadel is the first adventure in a series of 8 adventures. I would like to label these with the unofficial mod codes of WOTC 1 to 8. The further adventures in this series are as follows. Second, The Forge of Fury. Third, The Speaker in Dreams. Fourth, The Standing Stone. Fifth, Heart of the Nightfang Spire. Sixth, Deep Horizon. Seventh, Lord of the Iron Fortress. And eighth, Bastion of Broken Souls. As FYI, each was designed to be able to be used as a standalone adventure. I will now be discussing the adventure itself, and this video will contain spoilers. Unless you are a dungeon master who will be running this adventure for their players, or are a player who already played through this adventure and are watching this video for nostalgia purposes, I would suggest not to watch the rest of this video. As background, the Sunless Citadel was once a proud fortress. It was originally built by a dragon cult. Hence, many of the interior decorations, such as statues, wall carvings, column carvings, etc., depict dragons. In an age long past, it fell into the earth. The adventure briefly states, quote, an age-old fortress pulled below the earth by some invoked devastation, unquote. To me, this is an Easter egg to the C2 module, the Ghost Tower of Inverness. The background of that module also involves a long past cataclysm known as the Invoked Devastation. By the way, I also did a video review of the C2 module, and it can be found on my channel. So, please check it out. The Sunless Citadel is now at the bottom of a dark ravine. Broken pillars jut out from both sides of the ravine. The ravine runs several kilometers in both directions. Normally, I would describe monster debuts towards the end of a review video. However, the monsters that debut in this adventure are central to its story. So, I should describe them now. Legend has it that when a wooden stake is driven through the heart of a vampire and is pinned to the earth, a dark, twisted, leafless tree will grow from the stake sometime later. This tree is called the Gulthias Tree. Legend also stipulates that the wooden stake must be freshly made from the branch of a living tree. During the solstices, the Gulthias tree will bear fruit. At the summer solstice, a ruby-red apple ripens on the tree. Eating this apple has healing effects. At the winter solstice, an albino apple ripens. Eating this apple inflicts harm and possible death. Planting the seeds of either fruit will sprout twig blights. Although it has defenses, in this version of the adventure, and in the Tales of the Yawning Portal version, the Gulthias tree does not have the ability to attack. The tree relies on its twig blights and its thralls to defend it and to attack foes on its behalf. I will cover the tree thralls later in this video when discussing the final boss fight. The 5th edition of D&D expands the Gulthias tree. In the 5e Monster Manual, the Gulthias tree can also produce vine blights and needle blights to protect and fight for it. However, these additional blights are not included in the Tales of the Yawning Portal version. The main adventure has 2 dungeon levels, the Fortress level and the Grove level. The subterranean Grove level is also called the Twilight Grove and is where the Gulthias tree is located. The Gulthias tree is being tended to by Balak the Outcast, a twisted 4th level druid, for the past 12 years. Into the ravine there are 3 ledges and sets of stairs that lead to the fortress level of the Sunless Citadel. The module describes these stairs as not well made, so I assume that goblins have constructed them. On the first ledge are 3 dire rats. Tales of the Yawning Portal, i.e. the 5e version, calls them giant rats instead. More giant rats can be encountered in the ravine if the player characters stray from the mapped areas of the adventure. At the very bottom is the once crenellated battlement of the Sunless Citadel. It is now crumbled. Before entering the Sunless Citadel itself, there is a trapdoor pit in front of the stone door leading into the circular tower labeled number 4 on the displayed map. On the south side of the circular room is a concealed door that leads into room number 5. The door has a needle trap. Within this secret pocket room are 3 undead skeletons who have some treasure. Remember, this adventure was meant for beginners to D&D. Hence, you had dire rats to teach the mechanics of combat, 2 traps to teach the mechanics of traps, a secret door to teach the mechanics of searching, and 3 skeletons to teach the mechanics of turning undead. This, of course, assumes there is a cleric in the party. All of this was packed at the very beginning of the adventure. Okay, let's get back to discussing the Tower Shell room. In it are 4 slain goblins. They were slain a month ago by the prior party of adventurers. The slain monsters at the very beginning of the dungeon, for me, is a nostalgic Easter egg, and the setting of the Sunless Citadel itself reminds me of the first D&D module, B1, In Search of the Unknown. By the way, I also did a video review of the B1 module, and it can be found on my channel. So, please check it out. As a dungeon master, I would replace the 4 slain goblins with 4 slain ogres. Overall, I would make some background and lore changes to this adventure. Here is my version. The Sunless Citadel was originally inhabited by much higher level monsters such as ogres, bugbears, etc. The prior party that came through were at intermediate experience levels and did a thorough job of clearing out the Sunless Citadel before being worn down and meeting their fates when they reached the Twilight Grove. This gave the chance for low-level monsters such as goblins and kobolds to move in. This way, the player characters will probably have an "oh crap, what did we get ourselves into?" moment. Now that I have discussed quite a bit of the adventure's lore and background, I will now give a synopsis of the adventure. Oakhurst. The small town of Oakhurst is where the adventure starts. It is here where the player characters can recuperate and replenish supplies. The Sunless Citadel. The Sunless Citadel is the site of the adventure itself. Monstrous threats, ancient traps, dire vermin, twig blights, and warring kobold and goblin tribes can be found here. Kobolds. The kobold clan has lost their pets to the goblins. As a diplomatic solution, the player characters can agree to retrieve their lost pets. As a dungeon master, if the player characters act diplomatically and negotiate with the kobolds, then I would auto-raise them a level up. This way, the players learn they can gain experience points outside of combat. Otherwise, they may degenerate into murder hobos in order to gain XP. Goblins. The goblin tribe are hostile and unwilling to negotiate. Twilight Grove. Here, the player characters learn the truth of the apples and the twig blights. It is also here where the boss fight with Balak and the Gulthias Tree takes place. By the way, the lost pet is a very young white dragon wormling named Calcrax. Kobolds control areas 13 to 24 on the fortress level. Goblins control areas 31 to 41. Both tribes take prisoners. So, if the player characters are defeated by either, they will be bound and taken to the appropriate prison. Room number 13 and 25 are empty chambers. Rooms number 25 show signs that a prior adventuring party has passed through a month ago. The kobolds had a very young white dragon called Calcrax. The kobold named Meepo was supposed to look after the dragon. Meepo. Just like saying that name like that. Meepo can be found weeping in room number 15. A week ago, the goblins managed to steal away the dragon wormling. Because of losing Cal Cryax, Meepo fell into a deep melancholy, and his status amongst his kin is in the gutter. If the player characters move or act aggressively towards Meepo, he will flee. If the player characters are kind or diplomatic, they can converse with Meepo and ask him questions. He will say,
The clan's dragon! We've lost our dragon! The wretched goblins stole Cal Cryax, our dragon!
For questions he does not know the answer to, he will say,
Meepo don't know, but our leader does. Meepo take you to our leader, your drow, if you make nice. Grant you safe passage, if you promise not to hurt Meepo. Maybe if you promise to rescue dragon, leader make nice to you and answer your questions. Oh boy.
Room number 16 are effectively kobold barracks, and each houses 3 kobold combatants. If the player characters are not instigating blatant mischief against the kobolds, then they will be given safe passage to Area 21, with Meepo leading the way. This is where the kobold leader, your drow, sits. She is a 3rd level sorcerer and has 6 kobold bodyguards. Room number 18 is the kobold prison. In the original publication, there are 3 chained goblin prisoners. In the Tales of the Yawning Portal publication, there are 4 chained goblin prisoners. Chamber number 20 is the main living quarters of the kobold clan. There are 24 kobolds here, but only 3 are combat capable. The rest are too young, too old, or too unskilled. There is a tunnel at the western wall of room number 23. This winding tunnel accesses the Underdark. 3 kobolds stand guard here. There are 2 trapdoor pits in chamber number 29. Both were jammed open a month ago by the lost adventuring party. The mama rat lairs in the filthy cadaver-stenched room of number 30. The mama rat is a huge, fat, bloated, dire rat. Guarding the mama rat are 3 other giant rats. Also in this room is the cadaver of Caracas, who was the ranger of the lost adventuring party. Access to the goblin territory is through the southern door of hall number 31. Opening the southern door triggers the ruckus clanging of a bell. In turn, this alerts the goblin guards in room number 32, which is north of the hall. The hall is full of caltrops. On the other end of the hall, instead of a door, there is a crudely motard 3-foot or 1 meter high half wall. Taking cover behind this half wall are 2 goblins who will be throwing javelins at those in the hall. Room number 34 is the goblin stockade. In this dismal room are 3 rope-tied kobold prisoners, plus 1 caged and battered gnome named Urky Timbers. Urky Timbers is a 1st-level fighter and cleric. If rescued, he serves as an expositional dump as well as a potential party member. He knows most of the things I have already covered. In addition, he knows that the goblins caught 3 of the lost adventurers, whose names are Toljan, Sharwin, and Sir Bradford. They were then handed over to the druid Balak. Rooms number 36 are effectively goblin barracks, and each usually houses 6 goblin combatants. As with most rooms on this layer, the interior of room number 37 is in disarray, with smashed cabinets. What is unique about this room is that it has the heads of cattle, kobolds, and rats mounted on the walls. Occupying this room is Calcryax, the white dragon wormling. Calcryax has broken free of her bonds and has rampaged the room. Also in the room is a dwarven scroll case with a crumbling parchment. This parchment has clues to the location of Kondrakar, also known as Glitterheim. Kondrakar is where the next adventure, The Forge of Fury, takes place. Unofficially, I like to give the Forge of Fury adventure the mod code of WOTC 2. Chamber number 40 was once the cathedral of the Citadel. It is now the main living quarters of the goblin tribe. Within the chamber are 34 goblins and 10 hobgoblins. However, only 4 goblins and 3 hobgoblins are combat capable. Circular chamber number 41 is the lair of the goblin chief, Dern, who is actually a hobgoblin. He sits on a crudely fashioned stone throne. Besides Dern is a female goblin first-level cleric named Gren. A temporarily potted pet twigblight is near the throne. The twigblight was a gift from the druid Balak. A month ago, Dern slew Taljan Huckriel and wears Taljan's signet ring on his finger. In the center of the room is a circular shaft with sickly white and gray vines on its walls. A dim violet light shines out of the shaft. The Twilight Grove can be accessed by climbing down the vines. The sickly vines and shaft descends vertically down to room number 42 of the Grove level. Those who make their way here will encounter 2 twig blights and 2 skeletons. Immediately to the north is cavern number 43, which is the lair of a bugbear named Balsag. He wears a crown of antlers and has 2 pet giant rats. There is a natural tunnel here that accesses the Underdark. Thus, the Sunless Citadel provides DMs, should they wish, with 2 entrances to the Underdark for future adventures. Cavern number 45 is mineral rich. Feeding on these minerals is a Thokwa. The Thokwa monster debuted in the Fiend Folio. Tales of the Yawning Portal replaced the Thokwa with a fire snake in its place. With the aid of 8 goblins, the druid Balak has many concoctions made in room number 47, as well as conducting various experiments. As FYI, room 47B is where goblin liqueur is made. Room 47D has a dying giant rat that was the subject of a number of experiments. Room 48 was once a gallery. It has been turned into a garden. Well, because of its underground nature, more like a Gothic garden. Tending the garden is a bugbear. The 4 octagonal chambers labeled with the number 49 are the Underdark's version of arboretums. There is a huge statue of a dragon at the semicircular section of Chamber 50. The long-ago leader of the dragon cult was a red dragon named Ashar Dalon. This chamber was once a shrine to Ashar Dalon. Now there is a shadow haunting this shrine. At work in room 54 are 4 goblins sorting through various plant, soil, mushroom, and fungus material. The crumbled southern wall leads into the Twilight Grove. The Twilight Grove is a huge cavern filled with pale, spiny, thorny briars, which makes movement difficult. A violet light above casts nauseating shadows on the earthen floor. Unless alerted of intruders, 10 twig blights will be scattered about the grove. The Gulthias Tree is located in area number 56. The tree stands tall but twisted, looks dead, and is near dark black in color. Near the tree stands Balak, the 4th level druid. Beside him are 3 twig blights, Sir Bradford, effectively a 3rd level fighter, and Sharwin, a 2nd level mage. Both were bound and forced into the bole of the Gulthias Tree, and within 25 hours made into supplicants of the tree. In Tales of the Yawning Portal, instead of using the term supplicants, it uses the term thralls, which I think is a better and more descriptive term. Both Sharwin and Sir Bradford now have bark-like skin. Also here is Balak's pet, a 3-foot or 1-meter long tree frog named Colquette. Obviously, this is meant to be the final confrontation. However, just like the villain's monologue trope of spewing out exposition, Balak is willing to converse with the player characters before the battle begins. If the player characters manage to cut down or destroy the Gulthias Tree, then 1. Balak will lose control over the twig blights. 2. Any tree thralls, such as Sharwin and Sir Bradford, will die. And 3. Balak will lose his influence over the goblins. In such an event, Balak will attempt to flee, and could be used as a recurring villain if he manages to escape. Another change the Tales of the Yawning Portal makes is that if the Gulthias Tree dies, its thralls will regain their consciousness, but die 24 hours later, instead of dying immediately. The Gulthias Tree also makes an appearance in the Curse of Strahd, specifically on the top of Yester Hill. Both the Sunless Citadel and the Tales of the Yawning Portal, as well as Curse of Strahd, they all treat the vampiric origins of the Gulthias Tree as legend. Personally, I like this origin story. So, as a dungeon master, I would make a vampire laying beneath the tree. Remember, in D&D lore, wooden stakes only immobilizes a vampire. It does not kill it. So, if the tree is killed, then the once immobilized vampire will start regenerating and eventually rise. After killing the tree, player characters who know of the tree's origin legend and are clever should unearth the vampire and chop its head off before it has a chance to regenerate. This should be an awesome moment for the low-level player characters. After all, how many low-level characters get a chance to outright kill a vampire and live? As a DM, I would hope the players do not reason out that a vampire lays beneath the tree. That way, I can naturally add a vampire onto the campaign storyline. Initially, I would have the vampire act as a hidden benefactor to the player characters. After all, by killing the Gulthias Tree, it was them that freed the vampire in the first place. Wizards of the Coast probably inserted a young dragon into the adventure in order to bring back dragons into Dungeons & Dragons. Here is another idea for dungeon masters running this adventure. Cal Cryax was left in the care of the kobolds by her parents. Basically, the kobolds were only babysitting the dragon wormling. After the player characters leave the Sunless Citadel and are journeying back to Oakhurst, have them see overhead in the distance 2 white dragons fly to and into the ravine. Sometime afterwards, if their daughter, Cal Cryax, is dead, they will hear the parents' agonizing roar. The Dungeon Master can then have the parents hunt down the player characters in a future adventure.
Roll credits.
Displayed are the credits found within the module itself. The Sunless Citadel adventure received good ratings on both Amazon's and DriveThruRPG's websites, averaging a 4.3 out of 5 stars between the both of them. Given how other lesser D&D modules were rated, I think this score should have been higher. There were many customer comments. I will partially read 2 notable ones. This one reads, "Warning, this review is a DM's review. It is rare that I find a module that I can adapt to my campaign with so few modifications as this one. A few issues. 1. The adventure hooks, other than one of them, are fairly poor. The one that is actually pretty good, rescuing heroes, needs some additional background information, depending on how inquisitive your PCs normally are. 2. There is no explanation for how the goblins are getting to the surface to sell the apples. This is not really a problem, just a small thing that doesn't make sense. 3. There are 2 points that connect to the Underdark. However, as a more free-form DM, I find a heavy dislike for just describing winding tunnels leading nowhere. No matter how far the PCs decide to travel, the recommended solution, if they care to go trouncing down a ways. My solution was to map out a small section of the Underdark and throw a few ambiance encounters. These are all relatively minor points. I still recommend this highly to both novice and experienced DMs who are looking for a good low-level module to play with." This customer comment gives some harsh criticism of the adventure. However, he or she does make some valid points. I am stunned by the number of rave reviews I find about D&D materials these days. While I agree that the Forge of Fury isn't bad, the Sunless Citadel is a decidedly mediocre product. I have to admit that I did run an adventure that seemed to be enjoyed by all. The biggest problem was really the lack of logic in the module. How did Meepo keep the dragon in the cage? It hated him and could have killed him in 6 seconds, even with an accidental sneeze. Why do the goblins have no way out of the dungeon except through Meepo's room? Even if you give them another means of egress, according to the module, they still travel through Meepo's room to get out. There are also some issues I simply associate with laziness on the part of the game designers. Now, these complaints are not to say the module can't be fixed. Also, the gauntlet the goblins force you to run can be a pretty fun romp. It was. And none of my players seem to notice these horrible shortcomings. So, Maybe I'm just being too picky. Personally, I not only think the Sunless Citadel is a great beginner-level module, but also think it is a great module overall. Yes, it is a dungeon crawl, but it has many interesting elements. The module jams traps, puzzles, and monsters together into a dungeon. At the same time, it presents a memorable NPC in the form of Meepo, who breathes life into the dungeon and the adventure. I found the Gulthias Tree more memorable than the villain Balok. As I said, it is a great module that I was able to easily modify to fit into my own campaign. Thank you for watching. Hope this video has been informative and entertaining. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. I do like feedback, and I try to respond to as many comments as I can. Till next time, this is RPGmodsFan saying cheers, have a good day, and goodbye.
Throw a rock into a pond, ripples fade away. Human hearts aren't so lucky, those battle scars remain. Oh, I can't let go of the one thing I wanted most. I'm chasing echoes, echoes of your ghost. Can't let go of the one thing I wanted most. I'm chasing echoes, echoes of your ghost. La da 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 da, la da 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 da, la da 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 da. Ripples fade away. Human hearts aren't so lucky, those battle scars remain.